Today's episode of Off the Timeline is titled, What If Peyton Manning Chose Florida State? Some what ifs sound huge, but when you actually play them out, nothing changes. Same champions, same teams on top, history just corrects itself. This isn't one of those. Because in the 1990s, Florida State wasn't missing greatness, they had it. In 1993, Charlie Ward wins the Heisman. They win the national title. So this isn't about fixing a weakness, it's about what happens after the championship. Because right when that level should have continued, it doesn't. Not fully, not consistently. Now imagine it does. Because 1 year later, the next elite quarterback doesn't go to Tennessee, he goes to Florida State. And that's when the 90s stop being shared and starts belonging to one team. Now first, let's set the story table of the real story of 1990s Florida State. Because before we change anything, we need to get one thing right. Florida State in the 1990s wasn't a what-if program. They were a machine. Top 5 finishes, NFL talent everywhere, speed advantage against almost everyone, and an annual national title contender. And at quarterback, they had elite play. Charlie Ward proves that in 1993. So the issue isn't FSU needed a quarterback. The issue is they didn't sustain elite quarterback play year after year after year. And in the 1990s, that's everything. Because this was the decade where quarterbacks defined championships. Danny Werfel at Florida, elite quarterback play across college football, and big game deliverables separating the great from the dominant. Florida State was always in it, but not always with the clear quarterback advantage after Charlie Ward. And that's the crack this timeline is patching. And that sets the table for the flip that shouldn't happen. Because for this to work, Peyton Manning has to leave Tennessee, which on the surface sounds absolutely impossible, as this was the perfect fit for him. So what changes? Not everything, but just enough. Tennessee in the early 90s is strong, but it's not yet inevitable. There's still uncertainty. Offensive identity is still evolving. Scheme fit questions for a pro-style quarterback, and quiet instability compared to what they become later. Meanwhile, Florida State does something different in this alternate timeline. They don't recruit Manning like a trophy, they recruit him like a system. Florida State sells him on NFL development, pro-style structure, an immediate path to running a high-level offense, and national TV appearances every single year. Tennessee assumes, Florida State convinces, and late in the process, Manning flips. Not because Tennessee collapsed or did anything wrong, but because Florida State did everything right and made more sense in this alternate timeline. And that sets the table for why 1994 doesn't change and why that matters. Now this is important because this is where a lot of what ifs could lose credibility. Manning is a freshman in 1994, so this doesn't rewrite the beginning of the decade. 1993 still happens the same. The Ward era still peaks. Florida State is still elite. This timeline doesn't start by breaking history, it starts by extending it. And that's what makes it so fascinating. Because instead of a reset after Charlie Ward, you get continuity. And that sets a table for the continuity effect of 1995 to 1996. By 1995, you now have something Florida State didn't consistently have post-Ward. A developing elite pro-ready quarterback inside the system early. And by 1996, that development peaks. Now compare realities. In real life, Florida State reaches the top and loses to Florida. In this timeline, you have a Florida State roster that also includes a fully developed Peyton Manning, and that changes everything. Not because Florida disappears, not because the SEC weakens, but because Florida State gets stronger and they now have the best quarterback on the field in the biggest moment. And the 1990s, that's the difference and the major reason why 1996 flips in this alternate universe. And that sets the table for when one title becomes a dynasty. Now stack the efforts. With the 1993 real-life title, the continuity building of 1994 and 1995, and the flipped national championship of 1996, and now momentum takes over. Because once Florida State proves it can win with consistency at quarterback, everything compounds. Recruiting's even stronger. confidence is even higher, and even more close games tilt their way. So instead of Florida State was always in it, in this alternate universe, this is more like Florida State owns the 1990s, multiple titles, sustained dominance, and absolutely no debate. And now let's set the table for Tennessee without Manning. And as we flip the lens, because this is where things get uncomfortable. Tennessee without Manning, it's not the Tennessee you remember. No 1998 national title. No smooth transition to T. Martin as a championship quarterback. No stable offensive identity built around elite quarterback play. Instead, you have uncertainty, volatility, a program that's good, but not defining the decade or winning any titles. And suddenly, one of the most iconic runs in SEC history never happens. And that sets the table for the SEC versus ACC. Now let's zoom out because this isn't just about two teams. This changes the balance of power. Instead of the SEC clearly owning the era, you now have a real debate. You have Florida with Steve Spurrier, Florida State with Peyton Manning, and national title races that feel like heavyweight battles. And for the first time, the ACC has a higher level of legitimacy compared to real life. And that sets the table to rewritten legacies. And this is where the alternate timeline fully breaks, because legacies change. Bobby Bowden goes from legend to undisputed dynasty architect. Peyton Manning enters the NFL as a college football champion. Tennessee loses its defining era. The ACC gains long-term national weight. And the 90s, they stopped being shared because they belong to one program. So yeah, you may be thinking to yourself, it's just one player. But this isn't just any player, and this isn't a rebuild. This is taking a program that already reached the top and removing the only thing that stopped it from staying there. Now, if you enjoyed this one, hit like, hit subscribe, and drop a comment with the next timeline you want to break. Because trust me, there are a lot more what-if scenarios waiting to be broken. And I'll see you in the next timeline.